You know, there's a quote by Carl Jung that has always stuck with me. It's a deep one, really gets to the heart of human psychology and our individual journeys. Jung had this idea that the period before we turn 40, that's largely about building the personality that the outside world wants to see. It's shaped by society's expectations, our family, our education, building a career, all that external stuff. But then, after 40, that's when things get really interesting. That's when we start to turn inward, embarking on the real journey, the true adventure of self-discovery. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you meant when he said, life truly begins at 40. The first awakening, 40 to 45. Imagine this, you hit 40, and something subtle but powerful starts to shift deep inside. For the first half of your life, let's be honest, you were probably running on a kind of autopilot. You were following the script. Go to school, get a job, find a partner, maybe start a family, climb that ladder, build that status. You were largely acting according to what was expected of you, chasing those external goals. But then, round 40, the questions start bubbling up from within. That personality you worked so hard to build, with all its ambition and effort, it just doesn't bring the same satisfaction it once did. It's a strange feeling. You might look in the mirror one morning and realize that the roles and achievements that defined you in your 20s and 30s, the job title, the responsible adult persona, they don't quite feel like the whole story anymore. There is a disconnect between the you that the world sees and the you that exists in your inner world. This is where Jung's concept of individuation starts to kick in. It is this innate need to shed the masks society has handed us and get to our own essence. And this awakening, it usually doesn't show up as a bolt of lightning. It's more like a low-grade, persistent restlessness. The things that used to get you excited, closing a big deal, buying a new car, suddenly feel a bit hollow. You might have reached the peak in your career, only to find the view from the top isn't as fulfilling as you'd imagined. Or you might feel a certain emptiness in relationships you've maintained for years. This inner turmoil can sometimes feel like a full-blown crisis. It's that classic "is this all there is?" moment. You might feel like your life is on the wrong track and crave a radical change. And so, people make big decisions in this period. They change careers, get married, get divorced, move to a different city, pick up a new, passionate hobby. But here is the crucial thing Jung points out. These changes can't just be about rearranging the furniture in your external world. The real transformation has to happen on the inside. At this stage, all the aspects of yourself that you've hidden away or suppressed, the parts that didn't fit the successful image, start to knock on the door of your consciousness. Your subconscious is making itself known. When you start questioning the values you've lived by for decades, you become more open to understanding who you truly are and what you actually want. And let me tell you, this process is liberating, sure, but it's also painful. Because as that old identity starts to dissolve, it's terrifying. There's a void. If you've been behaving a certain way for 20, 30 years, breaking those patterns is scary. But on the other side of that fear is an incredible potential, the chance to meet your authentic self. The key to happiness and peace in the second half of life, according to Jung, is to stop the frantic race for external success and focus on internal fulfillment. So this period of awakening is really the stage where you begin to understand your own soul and listen to that inner voice. You'll see people start to seek out new ways to add meaning. There's often a growing interest in spirituality, philosophy, art, or personal development. Life isn't just about work and financial gain anymore. Inner satisfaction, spiritual wholeness, and deep, meaningful relationships start to take priority. Many people return to hobbies they neglected in their youth. Someone might start writing, another painting, another just spends more time in nature. Desires that have been waiting in the wings of your subconscious for decades finally get their chance to come on stage. This awakening is a transitional phase. You're starting to form a new identity, stepping out from the shadows of your past. You see the gap between who you were and who you want to be, and you begin the work of bridging it. Life becomes a journey based on internal satisfaction, not defined by external achievements. So, the 40s shouldn't just be seen as a midlife crisis, but as a period of opportunity, a time to unlock your fullest potential. That's why Jung said life truly begins at 40. It's the age where we find the courage, for the first time, to be ourselves. The reckoning, 45 to 50. Okay, so you've navigated the initial awakening. The dust has settled a bit, but the process is far from over. By your mid-40s, you're acutely aware that you're in the second half of your life. That initial wake-up call revealed some conflicts within you, made you question everything, and forced you to look at your life from a different angle. But awareness alone isn't enough. For a real change to happen, you need a conscious process of re-evaluation. This period is a critical threshold. It's where you bravely hold up a mirror to yourself, take stock of the past, and chart a new direction for the future. These are the years you really ask yourself the big questions. Who am I, truly? And what kind of life do I actually want to live? You scrutinize your past ideals, dreams, and goals. You wonder how much the things you pursued with so much passion in your youth really matter to you now. You develop deeper thoughts about your career, your family, your relationships, your entire social environment. For some, this period is like a reality check on all the choices they've made so far. Some people feel confirmed, like they're on the right path. But for others, it's a stark realization that they've been on the wrong track, and the need for a change becomes urgent. Maybe you've been at the same job for 20 years, and it suddenly hits you that it doesn't make you happy anymore. Maybe you realize your marriage has been lacking a deep connection, or long-suppressed emotions finally surface. Now, you're inclined to make more conscious choices, not just accept things as they are. This process allows you to ask, what do I really want? It's a time of asking why, and starting to give yourself honest answers. The person who once tried to fit into the world's expectations now starts listening to their inner voice. In Jungian psychology, this is one of the most important stages of individuation. You begin searching for your inner wholeness, moving beyond the social roles and the identity you present to the world. Confronting your shadow, facing the desires, fears, and forgotten aspects of yourself that you've suppressed your whole life, is an inevitable part of this. It's not always pretty, but it's necessary. You're no longer chasing just success and status. You want to add meaning to your life. Emotionally, this can be a roller coaster. As you confront past mistakes, you're also trying to shape your future. This inner questioning can bring up regret. Thoughts like, I wish I'd chosen a different career, or I should have traveled more, or I've worked my whole life and never taken time from myself, can dominate your mind. Another big challenge people face in this reckoning is the reality of aging. While your body and mind felt resilient in your youth, the physical and mental changes become more noticeable now. But this isn't a regression. It's a process of reaching a different kind of wisdom. Life experience and spiritual depth come to the forefront, replacing pure physical strength. You start to realize that things which seemed important before aren't that valuable, and you begin to clear out the clutter. You develop fewer, but more meaningful relationships. You become less dependent on material things and find ways to simply enjoy life more. This is the period where some people make radical career or lifestyle changes. The age range of 45 to 50 is a major tipping point. These years offer you the opportunity to rediscover yourself and your life. You re-examine old beliefs and habits, let go of unnecessary baggage, and start living more intentionally. You start listening not just to what the outer world offers, but to the needs of your inner world. That's why, as Jung said, life begins at 40, because from this age, you don't just exist, you start to truly live. Finding balance, 50 to 55. By the time you hit 50, you've reached another major turning point. You've been through the initial awakening and the subsequent reckoning of your 40s. Now, you enter a stage of establishing balance. All the things you've questioned, changed, or transformed start to settle into place. These years are a time when the major internal conflicts soften, and you have a much better sense of who you are and what kind of life you want. But this equilibrium doesn't just appear magically. You have to build it consciously. Your priorities undergo a fundamental shift. In your youth and even into your early 40s, success, status, societal expectations, and material possessions were probably front and center. But in your 50s, inner peace, meaning, and simplicity become far more important. You focus more on what you feel than on what you have. If achievements were seen as goals before, now the question is, do these achievements bring spiritual satisfaction? If you spent a lot of your life following society's script, now is the time to create a balance that aligns with your own values. This age is a transition to a phase where you're not just existing in life, but you are truly alive in it. You try to establish a balance between material and spiritual satisfaction. You spend most of your life working, maybe raising kids, fulfilling countless duties. But now, having achieved so much, you're faced with the question, am I genuinely happy? If you were focused mostly on material gains in your youth, you now understand the value of peace, quiet, and opportunities for self-realization. For most people, these years are about decluttering. There's a strong urge to simplify, both physically and mentally. You want to steer clear of things that drain you and cause stress, making more conscious choices. Unnecessary expenses, superficial relationships, and meaningless worries give way to a simpler, more meaningful life. Establishing balance also means creating harmony between your soul and your body. In your youth, health is often taken for granted. But at 50, the signals your body sends become much clearer. You can't ignore them anymore. Similarly, if you were once concerned with the size of your social circle, now the quality of your relationships takes priority. You have a better sense of who is truly valuable, which relationships nourish you, and with whom you want to spend your time. There's a desire for deep, meaningful connections over superficial ones. If you're in a marriage or long-term partnership, these years can be a time of re-evaluation. With children often grown and out of the house, couples have a chance to focus more on their individual connection. This can lead to a renewal and deepening for some, while for others, it might reveal that they've grown in different directions. And perhaps one of the greatest freedoms of this age is that you care much less about what other people think. The need to be accepted and validated by society, which might have driven you in your youth, has largely faded. You feel freer, more autonomous. You make choices based on your own values, not external expectations. In summary, The process of finding balance in your 50s is a period where you holistically assess your past experiences and create a more stable life spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Success and material wealth are no longer meaningful in and of themselves. Peace, inner satisfaction, healthy relationships, and a simple but content-rich life become paramount. You've largely resolved your inner conflicts. You understand yourself better, and you've begun to steer your life with more awareness. This is why life truly begins at 40, because from this age onward, you start living your own life. The deepening of wisdom. 55 to 60 as you move into your late 50s, you enter one of the most profound and meaningful stages of the life journey. The awakening, the re-evaluation, and the balancing act have transformed you, allowing you to look at life through a different lens. Now, it's not just about living, but about making sense of the life you've lived, turning the knowledge of the past into genuine wisdom. You've learned to extract lessons from your experiences, to distinguish what's truly important, and to explore the deeper dimensions of your existence. These are the years when you become more aware of life's transience than ever before. If you felt like it's stretched on forever, you now feel the value and the limitations of time more keenly. But this awareness isn't a cause for anxiety. Rather, it inspires a desire to live more consciously. You appreciate the value of each moment and want to clear your life of unnecessary worries. You realize that many things you busied yourself with in the past weren't that important, and this realization brings a great sense of freedom. This deepening wisdom also radically transforms your relationship with yourself and with life itself. While younger people are constantly trying to get somewhere and achieve something, this age reveals the power of simply being and feeling. Instead of external factors like success or status, the search for inner peace and calm comes to the forefront. You start to see yourself as part of life, understanding more deeply the connections between nature, the universe, and existence. In Jung's psychology, this is one of the final stages of the individuation process. You set your ego aside and begin to acknowledge that you are part of a greater whole. Your life experiences now begin to shed light for others. It's not just about your own development anymore, but about the contribution you can make to your environment. You want to pass on what you've learned, your experiences, your life philosophy. This is why many people step into the role of teacher, mentor, or guide in their late 50s and 60s. Some mentor grandchildren, others guide younger colleagues, others share their knowledge through writing, art, or social projects. Wisdom isn't just about learning. It's about sharing what you know and contributing to the tapestry of humanity. You learn to find joy in small things, to notice the beauty in life, and to savor the moment. A child's laughter, a conversation with a friend, a quiet day in nature, it all becomes more significant and precious. Physically, aging becomes more noticeable, but a wise person sees aging not as a loss, but as a natural part of the process. The changing body is an opportunity for the soul to transform. The dynamism of youth gives way to a calm, deep understanding. You accept yourself as you are, flaws, the changes that come with aging, and all. Because true wisdom isn't just knowledge. It's about acceptance and living life on its own terms. Perhaps the most important outcome of this period is the full attainment of inner peace. You are largely free from the burdens of the past. You don't have serious anxieties about the future, and you've learned to live in the present moment. The big conflicts and doubts have subsided, replaced by a deep, quiet knowing. Life is no longer seen as a battlefield, but as a journey full of discovery and experience. The process of deepening wisdom from 55 to 60 is a time when you start to view life from a wider perspective, appreciate your past experiences with maturity, and begin to achieve true serenity. It's not about acquiring things anymore, but about experiencing existence itself. You understand that aging isn't something to fear, but an opportunity to reach spiritual maturity. As Jung said, life truly begins at 40 because from that age, you don't just live, you start to truly comprehend the essence of life. Freedom and acceptance, 60 to 65. By your 60s, you've been a witness to all of life's twists and turns. You've experienced countless changes and have a much deeper understanding of who you are and what you want. After the ambitions of youth, the identity questions of midlife, the search for a balance in your 50s, and the deepening of wisdom, this period now becomes a phase of true freedom and acceptance. You begin to feel a sense of peace, accepting yourself as you are and adapting to the flow of life rather than resisting it. Freedom is no longer just an external concept. It becomes a spiritual and mental freedom. The most distinctive feature of this period is the realization that life isn't something to be controlled, but a flow to be released into. If in your youth you strived to shape, direct, and design life according to your desires, you now understand that this isn't always possible and, in fact, isn't even necessary. Life is to be lived as it is, flowing in its own natural rhythm, without the need for force. Realizing this brings immense peace and tranquility. Worries about what others think, social expectations, or career ambitions are largely in the past. You act according to your own values and feelings and don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. Freedom isn't just independence from the external world. What's truly important is the discovery of freedom within yourself. The mind, which once struggled with the burden of the past, with mistakes and regrets, now learns to accept them as they are. You see that everything that happened had a meaning, that every experience made you who you are today. Instead of trying to fix the past or mold the future, you learn to find true satisfaction and peace in the present moment. The mind experiences true freedom by releasing regrets about the past and anxieties about the future. The concept of acceptance becomes paramount here. Acceptance isn't surrender or passivity. On the contrary, it's about meeting the changes life brings with maturity, understanding and accepting them rather than fighting them. Changes like the body aging, losing physical strength, not being able to do things as quickly as before, these are no longer seen as deficits. The constant rush to achieve something, so prevalent in youth, gives way to an ease that comes from just being yourself. You start to see the changes in your body not as a loss, but as a natural process of life. The focus shifts to preserving internal energy, not external output. Concepts like success and failure, winning and losing, youth and old age, no longer have sharp, black and white distinctions. They are all parts of a whole, intricately woven together. In this period, you become a source of wisdom for others. You've lived through a lot, seen life's difficulties, made mistakes, fallen down and gotten back up. All of this has led your personality to its current maturity. Now it's time to pass on what you've learned, to guide and point the way for those around you. But this guidance is about living life by example, not by giving advice or instructions. True wisdom shows itself in your posture, your perspective, and your attitude toward life, more than in your words. The period of freedom and acceptance, from 60 to 65, is when you begin to meet all aspects of life with maturity, accept yourself and the world as they are, and as a result, achieve true spiritual freedom. You are no longer just living life. You feel life more deeply, appreciate every moment, and exist with a sense of completeness, feeling that you lack nothing. This is why Jung said life begins at 40, because only from that age do we truly learn to live freely and consciously. Spiritual and emotional wealth. 65 to 70 by your late 60s. You've left most of your life behind you. But this leaving behind isn't an end. It's a door to a new beginning. After the ambitions of youth, the midlife crisis, the search for a balance in your 50s, and the freedom and acceptance of your 60s, life now reaches a stage of spiritual and emotional wealth. This is a process of becoming full from the inside, a richness that surpasses material or external wealth. You begin to see yourself not as a passenger in life, but as a being inseparable from life itself. In this period, you develop a deep compassion for life and for yourself. You no longer blame yourself for past mistakes, aren't angry about the difficulties you faced, and accept what life brings instead of resisting it. Reflecting on the past is no longer a source of judgment or regret, but simply a storehouse of wisdom. You recognize the value of each moment and understand that every experience was a building block that shaped who you are today. This awareness creates spiritual wealth because you're now focused on a sense of completeness and peace, not on shortcomings and regrets. Emotionally, this is a time of deep maturity and tolerance. In youth, emotions like resentment, disappointment, anger, and sadness can feel overwhelming. But after 65, emotions are felt more balanced and consciously. You don't give minor problems much weight anymore. You understand the futility of arguments and become more conciliatory and understanding in your relationships. You know how precious it is to spend time with loved ones, connect with friends, and share memories. You feel a deeper connection to the natural world. Watching the cycle of nature, you understand that you are part of this larger, magnificent system. The sunrise and sunset, the changing seasons, the flow of water, the sound of the wind, it all reminds you that life exists in a glorious, perfect harmony. This awareness allows you to establish a deeper spiritual connection. Life is no longer seen as just a lifespan, but as a state of existing within a unified flow. At this age, the search for a meaning continues, but it's no longer driven by anxiety or a sense of lack. If in youth the search for a meaning was fueled by dissatisfaction, now it becomes a process of deepening and enrichment. Turning to art, literature, philosophy, or various spiritual teachings, you begin to see life from a much wider perspective. People in their late 60s start to find great meaning in the small details of daily life. The warmth of a cup of tea, the scent of a flower, a conversation with a friend, the laughter of a grandchild. These are no longer superficial experiences, but part of the very fabric of life. You understand that these details, which you might have overlooked in the past, are life's true treasures. Spiritually, you no longer feel a lack of anything. You don't need to get from one place to another, and you have nothing left to prove. Life feels self-sufficient. So, in this period, you reach a state of wisdom and acceptance that feels infinite. You know life is temporary, but this temporality doesn't bring sadness. On the contrary, it increases the value of each moment. The focus isn't on time running out, but on feeling the fullness of every instant. You concentrate not on what you leave behind, but on how you feel in the present and the beauty of each moment you experience. The period of spiritual and emotional wealth, from 65 to 70, is when you develop a deep love, compassion, and understanding for life and for yourself, achieving spiritual fulfillment and inner peace. You live not to change yourself and your life, but to accept and love it as it is. And that is why, as Jung said, life truly begins at 40, Because only from that age do you start to truly feel life itself. Legacy and integration. 70 and beyond, the age of 70 and beyond, is a period of reaching the deepest understanding of life and integrating with your past and your very existence. There's no more need to win, to achieve, or to prove your identity. The material aspects of life and worldly ambitions have completely receded, making way for a more meaningful, deeper inner journey. This stage is about forming a legacy of your life and accepting yourself as part of a greater whole. The past is no longer a tool for judgment. You've stopped counting your mistakes and past decisions as flaws and have understood that they were the very obstacles that made you who you are today. All experiences, regrets, happiness, and pain have become your teachers. You understand more deeply the meaning imparted by every stage, every struggle, every experience you've lived through. This awareness creates an enormous sense of completeness and peace. Nothing is missing anymore. Everything happened exactly as it was meant to. In this period, the transience of life is felt most clearly, but this awareness doesn't bring fear or sadness. Instead, the understanding that everything is temporary makes each moment even more precious. You no longer resist the flow of time or try to control it. Time is not just a unit of measurement. It's a process that allows wisdom to deepen. The desire to change the past and anxiety about the future completely disappear. All that remains is the pure, clear truth of the present moment. The concept of legacy becomes very important. But it's not about money or fame. It's the legacy of your being. The silent smile, the understanding glance, the way you point the way for others through the attitude toward life you've developed. This is true guidance. It's the wisdom you radiate simply by being who you are. Emotionally, you are now in a state of complete peace and calm. Resentments, the burdens of the past, and internal conflicts are behind you. You've not only forgiven, you no longer wish to change anything about the past because you understand that everything had a meaning and a reason. This understanding brings immense relief and freedom. There's no need to hold on to anything. The past is just a story. The future is not an expectation, but a flow. In this period, you make peace with solitude. Solitude is no longer a deficiency, but an inner richness. If for most of your life you felt a need to be constantly with others, you now have learned to be content with your own existence and find peace in your inner world. Silence is no longer scary. On the contrary, it has become the place where the deepest inner journeys happen. As you approach the final stages of life, the concept of death is contemplated more frequently. But this thought is no longer frightening or upsetting. It's perceived as a natural part of life. You realize that death is not an end, but a transformation. Just as everything in nature exists in a cycle, life is not a beginning and an end, but a process of change in an infinite flow. This understanding liberates you from the fear of death and grants you great inner peace. The age of 70 and beyond is the period of legacy and integration. You have accepted your life as it is and have made peace with your past, your loved ones, and yourself. You no longer wish to change or control anything, focusing solely on perceiving life itself in its entirety. True freedom and true happiness lie not in feeling a lack of anything, but in realizing that everything is already exactly as it should be. That is why Carl Jung said that life truly begins at 40. Because only from that age do we begin to integrate into life itself and understand the true meaning of our existence. So, if this journey through the decades resonated with you, if you found a piece of your own story in these words, then do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We explore these kinds of ideas all the time. The deep, Meaningful stuff that helps us live more conscious and fulfilling lives. Your support helps us keep making this content. Thanks for watching. And most importantly, thanks for reflecting on your own incredible journey. Take care of yourself. And until next time, be kind to that inner voice.